the most common first-time patient is somebody in their 50s, 60s, or 40s.
It's not the 20 to 30-year-old college kid,
No.
We all kind of have that image in our mind,
We do. And it's really something, like I said before, everything you ever learned about marijuana in your life was wrong.
Welcome to Healing Hearts, a podcast created by the Healing Center, voted Pittsburgh's best dispensary.
Welcome to the Healing Hearts podcast, coming to you from the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University. My name's Mike Flick. Not only am I employed at the Healing Center, but I'll be hosting this podcast. And joining us today are two of our most recent pharmacists to join the Healing Center family. The first episode, of course, we talked with our owners. The second episode, we talked with our first two pharmacists, our General Manager Mike Butler and Jill Zambicki. This episode, we'd like to introduce Alina. Can you help me with your last name?
Hi, my name is Alina Teplitskaya.
See, because I would butcher it and I'd feel terrible. And Jen Krasnicki, did I get that one right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I've only worked with you people for months now. I should know how to pronounce your names, but and we'll get to this, Ali. There's a reason your name's a little more difficult. You didn't start here in the United States. You didn't even start in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Where did this start for you?
So I came from Kiev, Ukraine in 2004 when I was about 12 years old. I did not speak any English, and it took me a whole year to learn the language. And I went on to Taylor Aldrice High School. I graduated, and I went to Duquesne, and I got my pharmacy degree. So I've been here ever since.
How do you make the leap from you grew up in the Ukraine till you were 12 to I want to be a pharmacist in the United States? What was that? How do you get from A to B there?
Great question. I decided that I wanted to be in the medical field and I wanted to help others, and pharmacy seemed to be a good career choice at that moment.
So it was a little altruistic for you. You wanted to take care of people.
Yes, definitely. And I still am at the Healing Center. So that's why I decided to join the team here.
What was your impression of the retail pharmacy world that everybody who works on our team, all of our managers, pharmacists come from that world? What was your impression there?
It was a little abusive at times, a little overwhelming. But at times I felt like I wasn't actually helping patients. I was just kind of like a robot, just giving prescriptions and giving people opiates and things that weren't really helping them, but just kind of hurting sometimes and numbing their discomforts. We've
heard it said, I think Mr. Butler said it the last episode, he kind of felt like he was part of the problem.
Yes.
In that world a little bit. And do you feel like when you're in the cannabis world now, how different is it? How has that changed?
I think medical marijuana is definitely helping a lot more patients here with palliative comforting, help, healing their properties also, or healing their conditions also.
Yeah. So, Ali, we got you here where you're the manager of the Monroeville store and Jen, manager of the Cranberry store. You're a little bit more domestic than Ali. You came a little bit closer, but you still didn't start in Pittsburgh. Where'd you come from?
So I grew up in Cleveland, so just a drive down the turnpike. Yep. I moved to Pittsburgh when I went to University of Pittsburgh for pharmacy school, and it's pretty much been my new home ever since. I started out interning at a Giant Eagle in East Liberty, and then I worked for Walgreens. I floated for a while, and then I was a staff pharmacist in the McMurray, so South Hills area.
What about your impression on how you felt in the retail pharmacy world? Is that something you were actively trying to get away from, or?
I honestly thought that when I started my career with that's where it would have ended my career.
Really?
And I kind of thought that I was stuck there. And then when this opportunity kind of opened up, it seemed like a good way to not only learn more, but also to kind of, have another option for people. Some of my patients were on 15, 20 different medications for all different kind of conditions. And when I kind of learned that, marijuana can help so many different things and kind of help simplify medication regimens and kind of help ease side effects and medications that they're using to treat those side effects, it kind of seemed like a great fit for me.
And you still feel, you're killing it there. Cranberry's getting ready to open in only a couple months. It's going to be a windfall when that store opens, man. You're going to see all kinds of new patients.
Yeah.
All kinds of new people coming in. We can't wait to get there. We really can't.
Yeah. And it's exciting too. So, I've been splitting my time between the Washington and Monroeville store. So I've got to kind of help patients from all over the Pittsburgh communities and suburbs. So now I actually get to kind of help a new community of of people in the North Hills area, and that's actually where I just moved recently too. So I've never worked where I've also lived. So it's going to be kind of really interesting to be really a part of the community there.
Yeah, you're going to have to ingrain yourself up there. But it's a great area. It's a great neighborhood. Our store there is going to be absolutely fantastic. So kind of a question for the both of you. When you guys came into this, I know when I started day one at the Healing Center in Washington, I definitely had a positive perspective on cannabis and medical cannabis particularly. But it's definitely evolved since then. Where did you guys start when you came into the Healing Center? What was your perspective on cannabis then, Allie?
I didn't honestly know a lot about cannabis and how it affected patients or how it helped. So it was a learning experience for the first couple of weeks.
Was it surprising?
It was. It still is. There's a lot of moments where I'm kind of amazed at what it's doing to some of my patients.
Yeah. Jen, did you start out apprehensive at all? What was this for you when you came in?
Yeah, so I didn't really have much background on it except for, I knew that it has been used in seizures. I knew that people used it to help appetite and that kind of thing. I had no idea what kind of the range of conditions that it could help. I remember before I actually started, it may have even been before my interview, I remember looking at the website, looking at the menu, and I had no idea what most of that read. And it's kind of interesting because now the patients that come in, they're confused with the menu. They don't know it. It's all foreign to them. And I can, really understand that. I felt that way too. But now it's something that I'm talking to people about it on a daily basis, and I can kind of help them get there.
It's kind of a weird new reality, isn't it? I feel like we all grew up kind of feeling like medical cannabis was a positive thing, at least for myself. And now we're living this reality where it's actually happening, and it's actually all those potentialities are actually kinetic now. We get to see patients every day at the Monroeville store, at the Washington store, soon in Cranberry, that absolutely get positive health benefit from it. It's mind blowing. And even if we're coming in with the right mindset, right? It's going to change you a little bit. But I want to talk more about some effects that you folks have seen, you ladies have seen on patients in the dispensary, and we're going to bring in Mr. Butler to the conversation as well, coming in next.
Hi, my name is Allie. I'm the dispensary manager at Monroeville location.
I'm Michael Butler. I'm the general manager for the Healing Center.
Hi, my name is Jen. I'm the dispensary manager at the Healing Center in Cranberry, PA. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to the podcast.
Back at the Healing Hearts podcast, coming to you from the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University. My name's Mike Flick. We've got most of the Healing Center team here right now. We've got Allie, Jen, managers of our current Monroeville and future Cranberry store, and our general manager, Michael Butler. And Mike, I want to bring you into the conversation, man, because you've been doing this longer than anybody. You've been you were patient zero for pharmacists in the medical marijuana field for the Healing Center. I want to ask you the same question that I asked them. When you came into this, what was your perspective at that time on medical cannabis?
Bewildered, I guess, just kind of like everyone else. Growing up, marijuana was illegal. Marijuana was something that you don't do. Marijuana leads you to become a drug addict and, a terrible person, right?
All the propaganda we all hear, sure.
Exactly. Yeah, and it really, I think it started to kind of turn with my development of a love for chemistry and math, because especially when I got into pharmacy school and you start to realize it doesn't matter what medication it is or what drug it is and how people feel about it. What matters is what does it do and where does it do it? And marijuana is really no different than any other, opiate or blood pressure med, in that it has a defined mechanism of action and it has a defined effect. Although with medical marijuana, of course, it's not nearly as defined as most of the other drugs that we have. But it's really what's astounded me the most is it's a whole new way of looking at things.
Sure.
That just because we don't know everything doesn't mean there's nothing worth knowing.
Absolutely. I remember when we were doing the training a long time ago, when we first started, you brought up how there's this endocannabinoid system that controls the entire brain, and you seemed pretty appalled that you'd never heard of it in pharmacy school.
I was. I'm still a little sore about that.
Did either of you two hear about the endocannabinoid system in pharmacy school?
No, I went to Duquesne and They never even once mentioned
$1,000 of credit, and it's like it never even happened.
Nobody seems to have mentioned that, and I still don't know much about it as far as how it, as part of the brain, affects the body. If you want to help me explain that a little bit.
So whenever we think about drugs and drug targets, most of the targets of medications that we have are specific receptors on specific tissue types throughout the body. Okay. And we can either give them a positive, or a negative effect to produce what we want downstream. Endocannabinoid receptors are more prevalent than just about any other receptor type in the body.
And they're all over the body, right?
Yes, they are. Primarily, they're expressed in the central nervous system, meaning the brain and the spinal cord. But also, there's a lot of expression throughout the immune system, and that kind of constitutes the anti-inflammatory properties. But the way the drug works is no different really than any other, in that it is a neurotransmitter. So we have a chemical messaging system in our bodies.
Sure.
And it is through neurotransmission, one nerve telling something to another nerve. And that process of transmission is called depolarization. So when we target any particular receptor type with a drug, it's
like any of your prescription drugs, anything like that?
Exactly, like an opiate, for instance.
Sure, it's targeting pain.
Exactly. So we're not targeting, just this, we're targeting the sensation of pain. And the root of the sensation of pain is through that transmission from nerve A to nerve B. And the frequency with which that happens is what determines the intensity of the pain that you feel. So if you can do something to decrease the frequency at which that nerve can fire that impulse, then you're decreasing the overall sensation of the pain. That's exactly what an opiate drug does at opiate receptors, primarily in the dorsal horn in the spine, where the first synapse takes place from one nerve to another. The endocannabinoid system is highly expressed there and also in other places, and really does what an opiate does. The final effect is very similar in that it decreases that nerve's ability to fire at a very high frequency. So it decreases the frequency, therefore decreases the sensation.
Sure.
Our own endocannabinoid system is really unique in that these neurotransmitters are generated on the postsynaptic side, the receiving nerve side, and sent over to the transmitting nerve side to decrease the transmitting nerve's ability to fire a frequent signal.
So it's kind of like a prescription medication is kind of like a traffic light, kind of slowing down that communication through the intersection.
That's a really good analogy, Mike. It's a very, very good analogy.
Thank you. And it's kind of like cannabis slows that car down before it gets to the intersection.
You're exactly right. That's what our endocannabinoid system does. So if we are injured and there's tissue injury, we see a very high expression of those endocannabinoids that we have, our own neurotransmitters.
Sure.
Kind of helping to decrease the inflammation and decrease that sensation of pain. And we are our own, just like our own opiates, we have endorphins are created in the same situation. So endocannabinoids are created in the same situation, and exogenous cannabinoids bind at those same receptors on the presynaptic side of the nerve and decrease that nerve's ability to fire as frequently, which is why you see when, you see a child that's having an epileptic seizure.
Yeah.
And you've seen the videos on YouTube, and they put the CBD in the little kid's mouth and they rub it on the gums and it starts to absorb.
Kind of calm down within a few seconds.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes, 30 seconds to a minute and that child's coming out of the seizures. It's just almost seems like it's as effective as rectal diastat. And then what's happening in that situation is you have these nerves on the presynaptic side, and they are firing at extremely high frequency. These are generally glutamate transmissions. But the endocannabinoids are working as best they can to decrease that frequency of firing, because it's really an out-of-control firing that's causing the seizure. When you introduce the exogenous cannabinoids like THC and CBD, they bind at those receptors as well and also decrease that nerve's ability to fire that signal as frequently as it is.
They're slowing down that car.
They're slowing it down, right, so that the stoplight is red more and green less. And so there's less traffic going through. to your analogy, which is a great analogy, Mike. It's great.
Well, thank you. But, you know, we do see those kind of results all the time walk into the healing center. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Jen and Ali, do either of you, and Mike, I want to hear yours as well. Do either of you have, and we'll start with you, Ali, maybe a patient that stands out in your head that, you know, like, oh my God, like this, I get to do this for a living and I just got to help this person. You see that kind of dramatic thing. Again, even coming into the healing center with a positive outlook on cannabis, you still see those evolutions in people, and it's definitely going to change you. You kind of have any of those patients that really stand out?
All the time, yeah. I do remember this one woman. She actually was wheeled into my consultations for the first time, and a few months later, she was walking with a cane. So she no longer needed to be wheeled around, and she felt better, and I helped her up, but she was walking.
She went
all
from
because of
a
cannabis.
wheelchair to a
exactly.
cane. Yes, it's insane.
What was her condition?
I believe Parkinson's.
Okay. And you had a Parkinson's story too, didn't you, Jen?
I did. So it was his first time coming. I was doing his consultation. He had never tried marijuana before, had no idea what to expect, no idea where to start. He started on some capsules, and I met with him and his daughter, who was a caregiver, a couple of weeks later, and he didn't have the walker anymore. He was walking there, was not out of breath, and it honestly like had changed his life like that quickly with a low dose.
Yeah.
What did you start him on?
I believe it was the Harmony 2.5 milligram RSO capsules.
So
daily.
low dose THC, very low dose THC
Correct.
capsule, which is pretty easy to take. There's little veggie caps.
Yeah, it fit into his regimen well, and it was working better than his other Parkinson's medications had in a long time.
And that's really something. And even at that low dose, so a 2.5 milligram dose is something that most people who have used marijuana, you really wouldn't even know that you took it.
Yeah.
Most people would not feel any psychological effect. It's not like this person is, high all the time or anything like that.
Right. Mike, do you have any patients or that you've dealt with, or?
Yeah.
I mean, these two both got Parkinson's over here, man. That's heavy stuff.
Some of the most radical transformations we see are in these types of neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's, ALS. Somebody that I know that I grew up with, have known all my life, came down and was diagnosed with MS.
Okay.
Her MS had her disabled. She used to be a pharmaceutical sales rep, top of her game, and then she was stricken by this. She was taking about a dozen meds, and the neuropathic pain was excruciating for her. Her life did a complete 180. We started her on a 5 milligram capsule every night, and now she's up to a 10 or maybe 15 milligrams. But just once a day she doses at night, and then she goes to sleep. She now takes 2 meds. She takes Claritin for her allergies and some Synthroid, and all of the other ones, are non-existent. And she's going to Planet Fitness for the first time in 20 years. She's actually back in the gym, which is astounding.
Where did she start? Like, was she walking with a cane before, or?
Excruciating pain. She had extended release pain medicine, opiate-based, multiple times a day.
Wow. She
had the immediate release breakthrough for pain that she used all the time. Also add-ons for pain, like Cymbalta or Effexor, one of the SNRIs. She was on 3 different blood pressure meds, and some other meds, 3rd-gen antipsych like Zyprexa or Geodon or one of those. It's just completely changed her life. To Parkinson's, my grandfather, I watched him go through that. And I watched my grandfather wither and finally was taken by that. Yeah. And that's a really brutal disease. And that's one of the things that really has touched me the deepest, is the turnaround in the quality of life of people that have these kinds of neurodegenerative diseases. And again, that speaks to how the drug works and the mechanism of action at that postsynaptic side, to really dampen these aberrant nerve transmissions that should not be happening.
It's kind of like a misfire that it's dampening down, right?
Yes, very similar. And diabetic neuropathy is another one that's extremely common neuropathy. Probably the most common neurodegenerative disease is diabetic neuropathy. And those nerves really, really respond very well to the introduction of an exogenous cannabinoid like THC and CBD.
That's really interesting, man. Let's take a break here, and we'll be right back with more on the Healing Hearts podcast.
Hi, I'm Lisa Craig, Marketing Director of the Healing Center.
Hi, this is Chris Cohan.
And this is Jay Richards. We're co-founders of the Healing Center.
Thank you for voting the Healing Center Pittsburgh's best dispensary.
And we'd like to take this time to thank you.
Thank you to the Pittsburgh community, really, with the bottom of my heart.
Thank you for welcoming the Healing Center into the Pittsburgh community.
It's a passionate community. It's really an amazing group of patients that we have.
Back with the Healing Hearts podcast from the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University. Mr. Butler, we haven't talked about a whole lot about when you come into the Healing Center for the first time. One of the guys here at Point Park, he was saying, I've never been to your store. I've never walked in there. What's the place look like? I think it looks like an Apple store, but that's how I always explain it to people when they ask. But that first time patient coming in, we see a lot of them. And I want to talk about what it's like when you come in, but what patient do you see the first time patient the most of? What are most of those first time patients coming in for?
Actually, the most common first time patient is somebody in their 50s, 60s, or 40s.
It's not the 20 to 30-year-old college kid,
No.
We all kind of have that image in our mind,
We do. And it's really something, like I said before, everything you ever learned about marijuana in your life was wrong.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we always learn, this idea of this, crazy pothead that's no good. That's not it at all. Actually, this is genuinely medicine. And the most common person coming in for the first time is, 40, 50, 60 years old, is on a plethora of medications and is really looking for a solution. And I always tell everybody the one question you came here to answer is this or is this not appropriate for me?
Sure.
Is this going to help me?
Sure.
And that's really the question that Allie and Jen are trying to help their patients answer. So you come in and you've got your card, and without a card, you can't go into a dispensary, and it's your first time. First, you run into a state-of-the-art medical facility. They're all brand new facilities, and they're beautiful, thanks to Jay.
They're pretty gorgeous.
And the first thing you run into when you walk in the door is a smile and a friendly hello. How are you? Have you been here before? No, I haven't. Have you been to any dispensary before? And if the answer to that second question is no, you will sit. We insist that you sit down with one of our pharmacists. We want to get to know you. We want to get to know why you've come. And some important things to bring with you are the primary thing that you want to bring with you is your med list. We are pharmacists. We are a medical facility. We're a pharmacy.
Because there's not a ton of drug interactions with cannabis, right? But there's a few important ones.
There are. I mean, there really are a lot, basically because of the way the drug is metabolized through cytochrome. What is it, 2C9 and 3A4 primarily. So there are technically really a plethora of possible interactions, but really what we're looking for most is how is medical marijuana going to, or is it going to affect the activity of the medication that you're already taking? So those are really the ones that we're looking out for. And there are some of those that can be potentially quite dangerous.
How long should a person, once they start medical cannabis, and feel free to join us here, ladies, how long should somebody starting medical cannabis expect to figure out whether or not it's appropriate for them? Because, I mean, we tell people all the time, it's less of a destination, more of a journey, right? Like
Right.
You kind of come in that first time, you guys usually set most folks up with like a 1-to-1 something, which is equal parts THC and CBD. How long should they be trying these things till they figure out whether or not this is something that's going to work for them?
I would say anywhere from weeks to months. We usually follow up with our new consults, especially ones that have never tried it before, in about a week or so. And it's crazy. Some people with just, a very small dose can have a lot of great relief, and other people say it hasn't done anything. And then you still see those people, a month, 2 month, 3 months down the road, and they haven't necessarily found the right fit, but there's always other options, and there's different
maybe
things,
some relief,
right? Yeah. And to kind of like build on that, and I always like kind of tracking their journey. I try to see, okay, well, what are you trying to treat? Tell me about what you tried first, and tell me how that helped, and then the next thing helped, and then I can kind of help get them to an even better fit for them.
It's something we haven't talked about on this podcast yet for patients is journaling. Just like you would when you go to the gym, when you start any type of medical therapy, right? I mean, that's a pretty common practice, I think. I'm the only non-doctor in this room, but I think that's pretty common practice. So when patients come in, what should they be writing down from the products that they try? I always explain to them as the patient care rep, it kind of depends on what you're trying. With something like a vape that's fast acting, we're going to land on that in like 5 minutes. Whereas something like a tincture, it's probably a lot longer, right?
Yeah. And really what you want to journal is what the product is that you're taking and how much of it that you're taking, because there are different cannabinoids. Now, everybody knows THC, right? Tetrahydrocannabinol. That's the one that makes you high.
Yeah.
THC is why kids have been smoking weed for years. If there was no THC, we just smoke cigarettes and rebel against our parents. So that's not the goal. That can be part of the journey, but that's really not the goal. That is really one of the only endocannabinoids, or one of the only cannabinoids that we're aware of that has that psychological activity. CBD, on the other hand, does not have that psychological activity.
What is CBD best known for?
CBD is cannabidiol, and primarily it has an anti-inflammatory effect. But it also inhibits an enzyme that has an effect on the psychoactivity of the THC.
So it actually dampens the psychoactive effect of the THC.
Exactly. And so most of our patients, if you are someone that comes in and you are looking to see if this can help you, with regardless of what the symptoms are, but you're very adverse to this idea of being high, then we almost always, in fact, most people in general, always start with a 1-to-1. So we want to start very low with something that has
equal parts of that THC and CBD in the product, right?
Right. When we say 1-to-1, we're talking about a ratio. 1 part THC, 1 part CBD. And then those ratios can vary. We can have 6 parts CBD to 1 part THC, which would have no psychological effect at all.
Yeah.
And we have that actually all the way up to 19 parts CBD and only 1 part THC.
And CBD we hear a lot about, but we don't hear a lot about it. I mean, the general populace, I feel like, outside of the dispensary, that's where they hear most about it. The CBD on the street, CBD down at the retail store or wherever. And that differs a lot from the CBD-based products that we have in our dispensaries, right?
Yeah, very much. Well, there's 3 kinds of the plant. There's cannabis sativa, cannabis indica, and cannabis ruderalis. The ruderalis is the hemp plant. And that's generally where the CBD that you find at the grocery store and the gas station, that's where that's sourced from.
Sure.
The CBD in our products comes from cannabis indica and cannabis sativa. So even though it's the same thing, all of the other cannabinoids that are with it and terpenes that are also available in these formulations kind of give it a different effect. So we're always looking for that entourage effect.
All those different parts of the plant kind of working together within there to
exactly, and that's what gives the variation from one strain to another. So what makes one strain of marijuana affect you one way and another affect you a different way? And it's that entourage effect of all of the cannabinoids kind of working together.
And we only really focus on 2 of them. That's what I feel like the real shame. I feel like the future of this really is there's over 110 cannabinoids discovered up to date. We talk about THC and CBD. What do those other ones do?
I don't even know the number, and nobody really knows. And really, in medicine, we want to try to isolate something. So in standardized medicine, we're always trying to isolate, like take dronabinol, Marinol, for instance, which is straight THC. It's a synthetic THC. It's not nearly as efficacious for chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting as the marijuana that we sell in our dispensaries.
The naturally grown.
Exactly.
Sure.
Ours has a much higher efficacy for that nausea and vomiting, which is exactly what dronabinol. That's what it's targeted for. That's what it's approved for. So what we have is actually a lot more effective than that, at least from what we hear and what we see.
Yeah. If you two ladies, Allie and Jen, if you're going to tell somebody, if you're going to prepare them for their first trip to the Healing Center, they come in, like Mr. Butler was talking about, they see that beautiful admissions office, they register, they come upstairs, and their first time there, they're going to talk to one of you or one of our other pharmacists. What should they bring with them into that room with you so you can give them an informed kind of projection of what you're looking at there? What do you need from them?
Besides a medical condition or medical list, really nothing else. We just sit down, we have a conversation with you, and I get to know you and what conditions you would like to help alleviate, and kind of start low and go slow, and you hopefully achieve the results that you're looking for.
Look for it over time, huh?
Yes.
That's what we always tell people too, is that it's a journey. You're not gonna, there's some patients we've had in there will take a few months to really narrow down, just like anything else, what's going to work best for them, I feel like. So if you need more information about your first time coming into the Healing Center, we have that all up, thehealingcenterusa.com. Please check that out. And, we had to come into the Healing Center at some point, right? We talked about this on the last episode with Jill, Allie, Jen. I know I had an awkward moment with my mother on the phone until she watched a CNN special about cannabis, and she was totally on board. But was there a moment when you told your parents, your family, that you worked all these years, pharmacy school is not easy at all, and you go through all this, and then you go, Mom, Dad, I'm going to go sell medical marijuana now. How was that moment for you guys?
There's definitely a little bit of hesitation in the beginning.
What happened
the unknown
when you went and told them?
They were still supportive. Yeah, they still kind of are, but they were a little uncomfortable with the subject. A little bit, yes, in the beginning. And so was I. But as I started working, I got to actually get to talk with patients and hear their stories. It was definitely fascinating, and I made the right choice.
Jen, do you have a moment where your parents were just like, or anybody in your life?
I think for me, my parents knew that the retail pharmacy setting wasn't really fulfilling anymore. So they were, knew that I was ready to kind of jump ship and do something else. And I think they still can't fully wrap their head around, what I do. And when they tell other family members, and then, I see them at a holiday, they're like, so here you work at a dispensary now. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I do. This is how it works. And there's always a lot of follow-up questions.
You got to explain this every year now.
Right.
Every single holiday,
Right.
There's a new family member that's got to come and ask the questions.
Right. And then everyone's listening. So I kind of take the spotlight for a little bit there.
Mike, do you have a coming out story? A cannabis coming out story?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think last episode I kind of talked about my dad.
Yeah.
But what I failed to tell you is that I grew up under the tyrannical rule of 2 older sisters.
Okay.
Which is difficult. I don't recommend it. They're both nurses. They're both very highly educated, and they're both extremely skeptical of medical marijuana. So there's kind of a constant friction there. But the more they see of it.
What was their reaction when you first told them this is what you were going to do? Hey, I'm not doing retail pharmacy anymore. I'm changing my life, and I'm going to go be the general manager of a medical marijuana dispensary.
Extreme skepticism, and of course the classical answer from my doctorate of nursing older sister, I just don't think we know enough about it yet. And of course my question is, well, there was a time we didn't know very much about type 2 diabetes.
It's true. That's a great,
There was a time we didn't know much about congestive heart failure.
Is that your mic drop moment? You walked away?
That kind of is. So, I think I kind of touched on this. We're all scientists. If you're in medical care, you're a scientist at heart, and we seek answers.
Right.
And this is definitely, as it is for patients, a journey. So it is for us as operators, also a journey.
Yeah. To some degree, your sister's totally right there. We just don't know enough about this drug yet. And it's hard to get it federally studied for so many reasons. But yeah, it's something we're learning more about every day. And we get to learn it on the ground floor, which is pretty incredible. And our family still let us be here, which is really awesome. So as we wrap up, as we've done in previous episodes, one question for you. If you were going to be a strain of cannabis, what strain would you be? Allie?
I will go with BioJesus. It's a heavy indica, but a lot of my patients come for pain and insomnia issues, and it seems to really help them. So that's definitely a common.
A lot of good feedback on that one.
Yes, definitely.
That's awesome. And Jen, what strain would you be?
I would have to say Girl Scout cookies. It's a nice balanced hybrid, and I was a Girl Scout myself, Troop 1173, so if anyone's listening.
Mr. Butler, if you were going to be a strain, I think you answered this one before, but maybe it changes week to week.
It might change. I mean, Jack Hare.
That's your go-to?
Yeah. I think I would be Jack Hare.
Okay.
I love the name.
It was with everything. If you need any more information or information on how to reach out to us or where to find us, thehealingcenterusa.com. Please visit us there. Allie, Jen, thank you, ladies, so much for coming. And thank you to the Center for Media Innovation here at Point Park University for hosting us. And we'll see you guys again.
Healing Hearts is presented by the Healing Center, voted Pittsburgh's best dispensary. Healing Hearts is recorded at the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University. More information is available at thehealingcenterusa.com.